The giant ship floated in the dark space above Earth. It was bigger than a city and covered in strange lights that blinked in patterns no human could understand. Inside the ship, Ambassador Vilthari stood tall in the main hall. His purple skin glowed softly under the bright lights. Around him, hundreds of other aliens sat in floating chairs, all watching him speak. "The time has come," Vilthari said, his voice echoing through the hall. "The humans have had their 1,000 years. They have stayed in their small corner of space like we told them to. But now we need their planets. We need their resources. The galaxy is growing and we need more room." The other aliens nodded. Some had tentacles instead of arms. Others had scales or fur or skin that changed colors. But they all agreed. The humans had to go. Far below on Earth, Admiral Park Deho was drinking coffee in his office on Luna Station. The station orbited around the moon, watching over Earth like a guard dog. Park was getting old now. His hair was gray and his face had many lines from years of worry. But his eyes were still sharp. The communication screen on his desk started beeping. Park pressed a button and the face of Captain Kim Sora appeared. She was young and serious, with short black hair and a uniform that looked too clean. "Admiral," she said from her base on Mars. "We're getting a message from the alien ships. Well, you need to see this." Park leaned back in his chair. "Put it through." The screen changed and suddenly Ambassador Vilthari was looking at him. The alien's large black eyes seemed to stare right into Park's soul. When Vilthari spoke, his words were translated by computers into Korean, then into English. "Humans of Earth," the ambassador said. "I am Vilthari of the Galactic Hegemony. We speak for over 1,000 different species across this galaxy. 1,000 years ago, your people agreed to stay within your solar system. You have kept this promise, and for that we thank you." Park took another sip of his coffee. He had a feeling he knew what was coming next. "But times have changed," Vilthari continued. "Our peoples need more space, more resources, more planets to live on. Your solar system has what we need. Therefore, we give you 1 year to leave. Find somewhere else to go. After 1 year, we will take your planets by force." The alien paused and his expression became harder. "Do not think to fight us. We have ships that number in the millions. We have weapons that can break planets apart. We have warriors from 1,000 worlds, all trained for battle. You humans have maybe a few hundred ships. You use old technology. You have no chance," the message ended. Park stared at the blank screen for a moment, then started to laugh. It was a small laugh at first, just a chuckle. But then it grew bigger. Soon Park was laughing so hard that tears came to his eyes. He laughed until his sides hurt. Captain Kim appeared on the screen again. She looked confused. "Sir, are you okay?" "Sora," Park said, wiping his eyes. "Patch me through to General Lee Taemin, and to Dr. Yu Ji-hai, and to Commander Kang Min-ho. Actually, patch me through to everyone. Level 10 clearance and above. Sir, that's a lot of people. And level 10 clearance is—" "I know what it is," Park said, still grinning. "Do it." 20 minutes later, Park was looking at dozens of faces on his communication screen. These were the most important people in the human military and government. Scientists, generals, admirals, and engineers. All of them looked serious and worried. "I assume you've all seen the alien message," Park said. "Yes, sir," said General Lee Taemin. He was a big man with a scar across his left cheek. "What are your orders?" Park looked at each face on the screen. These people had spent their whole lives preparing for this day. They had worked in secret, hidden from the aliens who watched Earth from far away. They had pretended to be weak and primitive while building something incredible. "Orders?" Park said. "My orders are to prepare the real response. It's time to show them what humans have really been doing for the past 1,000 years." Dr. Yu Ji-hai spoke up. She was a small woman with thick glasses and gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. "Admiral, are you sure? Once we reveal our true capabilities, there's no going back." "Ji-hee," Park said softly. "How long have you been working on Project Endurance?" 43 years, sir." "And how long has your family been working on it?" "My grandmother started the work. Her grandmother before that. My family has been part of this project for almost the whole 1,000 years," Park nodded. "And Commander Kang. How many ships do we really have?" Commander Kang Min-ho was young for his rank, but his eyes looked old. "If we count all the hidden fleets, all the ships in the pocket dimensions, all the ones that exist but aren't supposed to exist." He paused. 50,000 combat vessels. Maybe 60,000 if we include the experimental ones. "And Colonel Han, how are our soldiers?" Colonel Han Yujin smiled. She had short hair and muscles that showed even through her uniform. The baseline humans can survive in space without suits now. They can regenerate from wounds that would kill the old humans. They think faster, move faster, and are stronger, and these are just the normal soldiers, not the enhanced ones. Park looked around at all the faces. The aliens think we've been sitting here doing nothing for 1,000 years. They think we're still using the same old technology. They think we're weak. Should we tell them the truth? Asked General Lee. Not yet, Park said. Let them come. Let them think they're attacking a weak enemy. It will be more fun that way. Captain Kim spoke up from Mars. Admiral, what about the people? The civilians? They don't know about any of this. They still think our technology is basic. Park's expression became serious. The people will be safe. That's what we've been working for all these years. That's why we've been hiding our real power, to protect them when this day finally came. Dr. Yu adjusted her glasses. The aliens have no idea what they're dealing with. They still think the laws of physics work the same way they did 1,000 years ago. They don't know that we've changed things. Changed how? Captain Kim asked. Reality, Dr. Yu said simply. We've learned how to change reality itself. There was silence on the communication channel. Even though all these people had the highest security clearance, even though they knew about Project Endurance, some of the discoveries were still kept secret from most of them. So what's the plan? Asked Commander Kang. Park stood up and walked to the window of his office. Below him he could see Earth spinning slowly in the darkness. It looked peaceful, beautiful. It was hard to believe that in 1 year millions of alien ships would be here, ready to destroy everything. We wait, Park said. We let them come. We let them think they're winning. And then, he turned back to the camera with a smile that was not entirely friendly. Then we show them what humans really are. General Lee laughed. It was the same kind of laugh Park had made earlier. Soon everyone on the communication channel was laughing. They were laughing because they knew something the aliens didn't know. They knew that the 1,000-year truce had never been about keeping humans contained. It had been about giving humans time to become something the galaxy had never seen before. The aliens thought they were declaring war on a primitive species with basic technology and weak defenses. They had no idea they were about to face something that had spent 1,000 years rewriting the rules of existence itself. The laughter echoed through space stations and military bases across the solar system. It was the laughter of people who had been waiting a very long time for this moment. The war was coming. And the humans were ready. Dr. Yu Jihai walked through the long white hallway deep under the ground. The elevator had taken her down for 10 minutes to reach this place. Even she didn't know exactly how far down they were. Some said it was close to the center of the Earth itself. The hallway was lined with doors. Behind each door was a laboratory where humans worked on projects that would seem impossible to anyone else. These scientists had spent their whole lives down here, hidden from the aliens who watched Earth from space. Good morning, Dr. Yu, said a young man in a white coat. His name was Dr. Park Min-jae, and he looked tired. He had been working all night again. Any problems with the reality stabilizers? Dr. Yu asked. No, ma'am. They're working perfectly. The aliens still see exactly what we want them to see. As far as they know, humans are still using basic fusion engines and simple metal ships. Dr. Yu nodded and continued walking. This was her life's work. For over 40 years, she had been in charge of making sure the aliens never learned the truth about human technology. Every signal that left Earth was carefully controlled. Every piece of data was changed before alien sensors could detect it. The aliens thought humans were still struggling with primitive nuclear power. They had no idea that human ships now used engines that folded space and time. They thought human weapons were simple projectiles and basic energy beams. They didn't know that humans had weapons that could make stars explode or turn matter into energy with a thought. Dr. Yu reached the main laboratory and pressed her hand against a scanner. The door opened with a soft sound and she stepped inside. The room was huge, bigger than a football stadium. In the center was a massive machine that seemed to be made of light and shadow at the same time. It hummed with power that made the air itself vibrate. Around it, dozens of scientists worked at control panels that seemed to float in the air. Status report, Dr. Yu called out. All systems running at normal parameters, replied Dr. Kim Hai-jin, a woman with silver hair who had worked here even longer than Dr. Yu. The pocket dimensions are stable. All hidden fleets are ready for deployment. Dr. Yu smiled. The pocket dimensions were one of humanity's greatest achievements. They were spaces that existed but didn't exist, places where the normal rules didn't apply. Humans had been hiding entire fleets of ships in these spaces for hundreds of years. Across the solar system, Commander Kang Min-ho stood on the bridge of a ship that officially didn't exist. The ship was called the Infinity, and it was one of thousands just like it. From the outside, it looked like a small research vessel, but that was just what the aliens were allowed to see. The real ship was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its hull was made from materials that existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously. Its engines could move it from one side of the galaxy to the other in seconds. Its weapons could do things that would make alien scientists cry. "Sir," said Lieutenant Bae Soo-young, a young woman with bright eyes and quick hands, "we're receiving updates from the surface. The aliens have sent their declaration of war." Commander Kang laughed. "Perfect timing. How long until we can deploy the real fleet?" "According to the schedule, we can begin moving ships out of pocket storage in 6 months. Full deployment will be complete in 11 months. Good, that gives us 1 month to play with our visitors." The commander walked to the window and looked out at space. To anyone watching, this area of space looked empty. But Kang knew better. Around him, invisible and hidden, were thousands of ships filled with soldiers who had spent centuries preparing for this moment. On Earth, Colonel Han Yu-jin watched her soldiers train in a facility that was supposed to be a simple gym. But this gym had gravity fields that could be adjusted, training areas that could simulate any environment, and equipment that would seem magical to people from the past. The soldiers moved like dancers, but deadly ones. They could run up walls that had no gravity. They could breathe in spaces that had no air. They could survive injuries that would kill normal humans and heal from them in hours instead of months. "How are they progressing?" asked Sergeant Ryu Dong-hyun, walking up beside the colonel. "Better than expected," Han replied. "The new recruits are adapting to the enhancements faster than the old ones did. Their bodies seem to understand the changes instinctively." She watched as a young soldier named Private Song Kyu-won jumped from a platform that was 50 meters high. Instead of falling, he seemed to float down slowly, controlling his descent with small movements of his hands and feet. When he landed, he didn't make a sound. "The aliens have no idea what human soldiers have become," Sergeant Ryu said. "They still think we're fragile beings who need air and water and protection from radiation." "Let them think that," Han said. "It will make the war more interesting." In another part of the facility, Chief Engineer Bae Soo-ho worked on a project that was so secret, even most of the other engineers didn't know about it. He was building a machine that could think faster than any computer and create anything that could be imagined. "The fabrication matrix is online," reported Engineer Nam Woo-shik, a thin man with nervous hands. "We can now produce any technology we need in real time." "Excellent," Bae said. "What about the quantum interface?" "Ready for testing. We can now communicate with parallel versions of ourselves in other realities. If we need help, we can literally ask ourselves from different dimensions." Bae nodded. This was why the aliens would lose. They were still thinking about war the old way. They brought ships and soldiers and weapons. Humans had learned to bring entire realities to the fight. Back on Luna Station, Admiral Park received a call from President Moon Jae-kyung. The president was an old woman with kind eyes, but Park knew she had a will stronger than steel. "Admiral," she said, "the people are starting to worry." The alien message was broadcast to everyone. "They think we're going to lose. What should I tell them?" Park asked. "The truth, some of it anyway. Tell them that we're not the same humans who signed the treaty 1,000 years ago. Tell them that we've been preparing for this day since the moment the aliens left. Tell them that Earth will be safe." Park nodded. "And the real truth? When do we reveal what we've actually become?" President Moon was quiet for a moment. "When the aliens arrive and see our ships, they'll think they're looking at primitive human technology. Let them attack first. Let them think they're winning. Then we show them that humans don't just follow the laws of physics anymore. We write them." On Mars, Captain Kim Sora reviewed reports from observation posts throughout the solar system. The aliens were gathering their fleets. Ships were coming from every corner of the galaxy. The numbers were staggering. Millions of vessels, each one larger and more powerful than anything the aliens thought humans could build. But Kim wasn't worried. She had seen the secret files. She knew what humanity was really capable of now. Her communication device beeped. It was a message from her younger brother Kim Tae-wook, who was a civilian living on Earth. He didn't know about the secret projects or the hidden technology. "So, Ra," his message said, "are we really going to fight aliens with spaceships? Our ships look so small compared to theirs. Are we going to be okay?" Kim smiled and sent a message back. "Don't worry, little brother. We have a few surprises for our alien friends. Earth will be fine. Trust me." What she didn't tell him was that the few surprises included the ability to rewrite reality, travel through dimensions, and use weapons that turned the laws of physics into suggestions rather than rules. Deep in the laboratories under Earth, Dr. Yu Jihai made final preparations. Soon the aliens would arrive. Soon they would see what humanity had really been doing during their 1,000 years of isolation. They thought they were coming to conquer a primitive species that had barely learned to travel between planets. They were about to discover that humans had learned to travel between realities. They thought they were bringing superior technology to crush an inferior enemy. They were about to find out that humans had moved beyond technology into something that could only be called magic. They thought they understood what war meant. They were about to learn that humans had redefined the very concept of conflict. The 1,000-year truce was ending. The aliens thought this meant war. The humans knew it meant something much more interesting than that. It meant it was time to stop pretending to be weak, and the galaxy was about to discover what humans really were when they stopped holding back. The alien fleet arrived at the edge of the solar system like a storm made of metal and light. Fleet Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Domination, and looked at the readings with satisfaction. His fleet had over 2 million ships. Each ship was larger than a human city. Each ship carried weapons that could destroy planets. "Report," Zektar commanded. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "All fleets are in position," replied his second-in-command, a thin alien with 4 arms named Kickstar. "We have the entire solar system surrounded." "The humans cannot escape," Zektar nodded. "This would be easy. Almost too easy." The humans had only 300 ships defending their system. His scouts had counted them carefully. Small ships, crude weapons, primitive shields. It would be over in minutes. "What are the humans doing?" he asked. "Nothing, sir. Their ships are just sitting there. They're not even powering up their weapons." Zektar found this strange. Usually species tried to fight back when faced with overwhelming force. Even when they knew they would lose, they tried. But the humans were just waiting. On the bridge of the human ship Resilience, Captain Oh Kyung-soo sat calmly in his chair. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. They all looked relaxed, as if they were taking a peaceful trip instead of facing an alien armada. "Sir," said Lieutenant Park Ji-yoon, "the aliens are scanning us. They're trying to figure out what our ships can do." "Let them scan," Captain Oh said with a smile. "Make sure they see exactly what we want them to see." The aliens would see ships made of simple metal alloys. They would see fusion reactors and basic energy weapons. They would see shields that were barely stronger than thick armor. Everything they expected to see from a primitive human fleet. They would not see the reality engines hidden in the ship's core. They would not see the dimensional fold drives that could move the ship anywhere in the universe instantly. They would not see the weapons that could convince matter to stop existing. "Sir, the alien commander is trying to communicate with us," Lieutenant Park reported. "Put him through," Captain O said. The main screen flickered and Zektar's face appeared. He was large and ugly with gray skin and red eyes. When he spoke, his words were full of anger and threat. "Human Captain," Zektar said. "I am Fleet Commander Zektar of the Galactic Hegemony. You will surrender immediately. Your ships will be destroyed. Your people will be relocated. Resistance is useless." Captain O stood up slowly. He was a small man compared to the alien commander, but he showed no fear. "Fleet Commander Zektar, this is Captain Oh Kyung-soo of the Human Defense Force. You are violating the terms of the 1,000-year truce by bringing weapons of war into our system. Please withdraw immediately." Zektar laughed. It was a harsh sound, like metal scraping against stone. "The truce is over, human. We ended it. Your time is finished. Surrender now and some of your people might live." "I'm sorry," Captain O said politely, "but that's not going to happen. You see, we've been waiting for this day for 1,000 years. We're rather excited about it, actually." The alien commander's expression changed. Something in the human's voice made him nervous, though he couldn't say why. "You have 300 ships," Zektar said. "We have 2 million. Your weapons are primitive. Ours can destroy planets. How can you possibly think you can win? Captain O smiled. Well, that's the fun part. You're about to find out. He made a gesture to Lieutenant Park, who cut the communication. Then he turned to his crew. All ships, he announced. Prepare for combat. Remember, we want to make this educational for our guests. Show them slowly what we can really do. The alien fleet opened fire. The space between the fleets lit up with energy beams that could melt mountains and missiles that could crack continents. Enough firepower to destroy a dozen planets struck the human ships, and nothing happened. The weapons hit the human ships and simply stopped. The energy beams touched the hulls and faded away like candle flames in the wind. The missiles struck the shields and gently bounced off, floating harmlessly in space. On the Domination, Zektar stared at his instruments in confusion. What happened? Why didn't our weapons work? I don't know, sir, Kickstar replied, his forehands shaking as he checked the readings. Our weapons fired normally. They should have destroyed the human ships completely. But the energy just disappeared. Fire again, Zektar roared. The alien fleet fired a second time. Then a third. Each time, their weapons simply had no effect on the human ships. It was as if the humans were protected by something that made normal physics stop working. Warning acknowledged. Captain O announced on all frequencies, his voice still perfectly polite. Deploying defensive countermeasures. The human ships began to move. But they didn't move like normal ships. They didn't accelerate slowly or turn in wide curves. They simply disappeared from one place and appeared in another. In seconds, the 300 human ships were spread throughout the alien fleet. They had teleported past the alien defenses as if those defenses didn't exist. Impossible, Zektar screamed. Teleportation is theoretical. No species has ever achieved practical teleportation. But the humans weren't finished. The ships began to do things that hurt the aliens' minds to watch. Some ships passed through solid alien vessels as if they were made of smoke. Others seemed to exist in several places at the same time. One human ship turned completely inside out, then back again without any apparent effect on its crew. Lieutenant Park Ji-yoon monitored the alien communications from her station. The aliens were panicking. Their commanders were screaming orders that made no sense. Their scientists were babbling about impossible physics. Sir, she reported to Captain O, the aliens are trying to understand how we're doing this. They're running every scan they have, but their instruments can't make sense of what they're seeing. Good, Captain O said. Let's give them something else to think about. He pressed a button on his command chair. Throughout the human fleet, weapons that shouldn't exist began to power up. These weren't energy beams or missiles. These were devices that could change the basic rules of reality in a small area. The first alien ship to be targeted found that its metal hull had been convinced to become flowers. Thousands of beautiful roses bloomed across the ship's surface. The ship was undamaged, but the crew inside was terrified and confused. Another alien ship discovered that its gravity had been reversed. Everything inside the ship began floating toward the ceiling. The crew found themselves walking on what used to be the top of their ship, looking down at control panels that now hung above their heads. A third ship had its weapons turned into musical instruments. When they tried to fire, instead of deadly beams, they produced beautiful melodies that echoed through space. What are you doing to us? Zektar demanded over the communication channel. We're being gentle, Captain O replied. You see, Commander, you thought you were attacking a primitive species. But humans haven't been primitive for a very long time. We've learned to do things that your science says are impossible. This is some kind of trick, Zektar shouted. Advanced technology that we don't recognize. Oh, it's much more than that, Captain O said. We haven't just built better technology. We've learned to rewrite the laws of physics themselves. Matter, energy, space-time. These are all just suggestions now. We can change them whenever we want. To prove his point, Captain O gestured again. One of the alien dreadnoughts, a massive ship the size of a small moon, suddenly found that all of its atoms had forgotten how to stick together. The ship came apart peacefully, its crew floating safely in small bubbles of air that appeared around each person. The aliens in their floating bubbles looked around in shock. They were in the vacuum of space, but they could breathe. They were surrounded by nothing, but they were warm and safe. It was impossible, but it was happening. How? Zektar whispered. Practice, Captain O said. Lots and lots of practice. You gave us 1,000 years to figure things out. Did you really think we spent that time doing nothing? Another human ship demonstrated its abilities by making time move backwards around one of the alien vessels. The aliens watched in horror as their ship's damage from previous battles healed itself. Their fuel tanks refilled. Their crew members grew younger. Then time moved forward again, returning everything to normal. That was just a small example, Captain O explained. We can control time itself. We can make space fold in on itself. We can convince matter that it wants to be energy, or energy that it wants to be matter. We've moved beyond technology into something you might call magic. The alien fleet was in chaos. Ships were trying to retreat, but they found that their engines wouldn't work. Not because the humans had damaged them, but because the humans had convinced the space around them that movement was not allowed. Other ships tried to communicate with their home worlds, but their messages were transformed into poetry before they could be sent. Love poems specifically, written in the native languages of their intended recipients. This is impossible, Zektar screamed. Physics doesn't work this way. Your physics don't work this way, Captain O corrected. Human physics are much more flexible. We've learned that reality is not fixed. It can be changed by anyone who understands how to ask it nicely. Admiral Song Hae-young watched the battle from her command ship, the Eternal Dawn. She had been chosen to lead humanity's response not because she was the strongest fighter, but because she was the most patient. Today, patience was more important than strength. Admiral, said Commander Lim Yoon-sol, the alien fleet is completely surrounded. They can't move. They can't communicate with their homeworlds, and their weapons have all been converted into art supplies. Song smiled. Art supplies? Yes, ma'am. Their missile launchers are now producing paintbrushes. Their energy cannons are shooting rainbows, and their torpedo tubes are launching musical notes that play classical symphonies when they hit something. This was the human way of war now. Not destruction but transformation. Not death but education. The aliens had come expecting a traditional battle. Instead, they were getting a lesson in what was possible when you stopped thinking inside the normal rules. What's the status of their command ship? Song asked. Fleet Commander Zektar is currently sitting in a field of flowers that have grown across his bridge, replied Commander Lim. The flowers are singing lullabies in his native language. His crew is trying to understand how plants can exist in the vacuum of space and why they have vocal cords. Song nodded. And our demonstration timeline? We're ahead of schedule. The aliens have already seen basic reality manipulation, time control, and matter conversion. Engineer Nam Woo-shik is ready to show them dimensional folding. On the engineering deck of the Eternal Dawn, Engineer Nam Woo-shik was making final adjustments to a device that looked like a sphere made of pure light. Around him, his team worked with tools that seemed to bend space just by existing. Sir, said Engineer Lee Jae-ho, the dimensional fold generator is ready. We can now demonstrate pocket universe creation. Nam smiled. Excellent. Let's show our alien friends what a real spaceship looks like. He activated the device and reality hiccuped. The Eternal Dawn began to unfold. Not physically, but dimensionally. The ship revealed that it was much, much larger than it appeared. The small human vessel suddenly extended into 11 different dimensions simultaneously. From the aliens' perspective, the ship seemed to become impossible large while somehow still being the same size. Sir, Kickstar screamed on the bridge of the Domination, his 4 arms frantically working at control panels that were now covered in singing flowers. The human ship I can't describe what it's doing. Zektar tried to look at the human ship, but his eyes couldn't focus on it properly. The ship seemed to be small and enormous at the same time. It was close and far away simultaneously. It hurt his brain to look at it. It's existing in multiple dimensions at once, explained Captain Oh Kyung-soo over the communication channel. His voice was kind, like a teacher explaining something to a student. We don't have to choose between being big or small anymore. We can be both. Or neither. Or something else entirely. To demonstrate, the Eternal Dawn folded itself into a shape that was both inside and outside of normal space. The aliens could see it, but their instruments insisted it wasn't there. It was there, but their sensors said it was also somewhere else entirely. This is making my head hurt, Zektar groaned. That's normal, Captain O said. Your brains haven't been modified to process 11-dimensional geometry. Don't worry, the feeling passes after a few minutes. But the humans weren't finished with their demonstration. Dr. Lim Yoon-sol activated another system, and suddenly the aliens found themselves looking at copies of their own ships. Perfect copies floating right next to the originals. Are those our ships? Asked a confused alien captain over the communication channel. They're possibilities of your ships, Dr. Lim explained. We reached into parallel realities and borrowed the versions of your fleet that decided to be peaceful. They're exactly the same as your ships, except they never came here to fight. They came here to make friends. The parallel alien ships began broadcasting messages of peace and friendship. The aliens in the original ships listened in shock as perfect copies of themselves talked about how wonderful humans were and how exciting it was to meet them. But that's not what we think, protested one alien captain. It's what you think in universe number 47,291, Dr. Lim said cheerfully. In that reality, you developed philosophy instead of weapons. You're all very nice there. Sergeant Ryu Donghyun, still floating in space without a suit, decided to demonstrate another human capability. He reached out with his bare hand and touched the hull of an alien battleship. The ship immediately began to change. Its dark metal hull turned bright silver. Its weapon ports transformed into windows filled with colorful gardens. Its missile arrays became balconies where small alien children could play safely. You turned our warship into a daycare center, said the ship's captain, his voice filled with wonder. Your ship was sad being a weapon, Sergeant Ryu explained. I asked it what it really wanted to be, and it said it wanted to help raise children. So now it does. The children are holographic, but they're very realistic and quite well behaved. The alien captain looked around his transformed bridge. Where there had once been weapon controls, there were now art supplies and teaching materials. His tactical displays showed puppet shows and educational programs instead of battle plans. This is actually quite nice, he admitted. Most things are happier when they're not being used to hurt people, Sergeant Ryu said. We learned that about ourselves too. On another ship, Chief Engineer Bei Suho was demonstrating the human mastery of time. He had created a small area around one alien vessel where time moved at different speeds and different places. The aliens inside could see their ship's front section, moving normally while the back section moved very slowly. The middle of the ship was moving backwards through time. They could watch their morning shift happening again while their evening shift hadn't started yet? This is very confusing, complained the ship's engineer. Time is much more flexible than most species realize, Bei explained. We can speed it up, slow it down, reverse it, or make it loop. We can even create areas where time moves sideways, though that's harder to explain. Sideways? Instead of past to future, it goes from possible to impossible. It's quite useful for creative problem solving. Meanwhile, Colonel Han Yu-jin was showing what human soldiers had become. She stood on the hull of an alien cruiser in vacuum, without any protection. She was juggling small suns that she had created by asking nearby hydrogen atoms to fuse politely. The aliens inside the ship watched through their windows as she tossed miniature stars from hand to hand. Each star was perfectly controlled, warm but not burning, bright but not blinding. How are you creating nuclear fusion with your bare hands? Asked the ship's captain. Practice, Colonel Han said simply. Also, we asked the atoms very nicely. It turns out that matter is much more cooperative when you treat it with respect. She finished her juggling act by converting the miniature stars into butterflies made of pure light. The butterflies scattered across space, each one beautiful and impossible. Back on the command ship, Admiral Song received reports from across the battle zone. Every alien ship had been transformed in some way. Some had become gardens. Others were now schools or libraries. A few had become art galleries displaying the greatest works from thousands of worlds. Not one alien had been hurt. Not one ship had been destroyed. But the entire alien fleet had been completely defeated without the humans firing a single conventional weapon. Admiral, said Commander Lim, Fleet Commander Zektar is requesting to speak with you personally. Put him through, Song said. Zektar's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired and confused. Behind him, his bridge was now a peaceful meadow with a small stream running through it. His crew was sitting by the stream feeding fish that swam through the air. Admiral Song, Zektar said quietly. What are you? Song considered the question. We're what humans became when we had 1,000 years to grow without anyone trying to stop us. But this is beyond technology. This is beyond science. This is magic, Song suggested. Yes, it probably looks like magic to you. But it's not really magic. We just learned that the universe is much more flexible than most people realize. Reality isn't fixed. It can be changed by anyone who knows how to ask properly. How? Zektar whispered. The same way you change anything else, Song said. With understanding, patience, and respect. We spent centuries learning to understand the basic forces of existence. Then we spent more centuries learning to work with them instead of against them. And we learned to be patient because big changes take time. What happens now? Zektar asked. You've defeated us completely. You could destroy us all, but you haven't. You could enslave us, but you haven't done that either. What do you want? Admiral Song smiled. We want the same thing we've always wanted. Peace, safety for our families. A chance to grow and learn and become better than we were. But you're already so powerful. What more could you possibly want to become? Wiser, Song said simply. Power without wisdom is dangerous. We've learned to be powerful. Now we're learning to be wise. And wisdom tells us that the best victory is one where everyone wins. She gestured, and suddenly all the alien ships were restored to their original condition. The gardens became weapon bays again, but the aliens remained changed. The war ended at exactly 3:47 p.m., Earth Standard Time, when Fleet Commander Zektar sat down on his bridge and began to cry. Not tears of pain or anger, but tears of understanding. In 4 hours, everything he thought he knew about the universe had been proven wrong. His mighty fleet hung motionless in space, not because they were trapped, but because they had simply lost the will to fight something so far beyond their understanding. Ambassador Velthari materialized on the bridge of the Domination without warning. He didn't teleport or use any technology the aliens recognized. One moment he wasn't there, and the next moment he was, as if reality had simply decided that he belonged in that spot. Commander Zektar, Velthari said gently. I've come to talk. Zektar looked up at the human ambassador. Velthari appeared to be a middle-aged man with kind eyes and gray hair. He wore simple clothes that somehow seemed more elegant than the finest alien formal wear. How did you get here? Zektar asked. I asked space to let me visit you, Velthari said, sitting down beside the alien commander. It was happy to help. Around them, the alien bridge crew stared in shock. The human had somehow appeared on their ship, which was surrounded by their most powerful shields and defenses. But he didn't seem threatening. If anything, he seemed like a teacher who had come to help with a difficult lesson. I don't understand any of this, Zektar said. Your species was supposed to be primitive, weak, but you've shown us things that should be impossible. They are impossible, Velthari agreed. According to your physics. But human physics work differently now. How? Velthari gestured, and suddenly they were sitting in a garden instead of on a spaceship bridge. The alien crew found themselves on soft grass under a warm sun, with flowers blooming around them and birds singing in nearby trees. This is still your ship, Velthari explained. I just asked it to remember what it was like to be a peaceful place. Your ship is very old, isn't it? It remembers when it was just metal and dreams before it became a weapon. Zektar looked around in wonder. This looks like my homeworld. The planet where I was born. Your ship has been there many times. It remembers the beauty it saw. The alien commander stood up and walked to a tree that bore fruit he recognized from his childhood. This is impossible. We're in space. There's no air here, no gravity, no life. There is if you ask nicely, Velthari said. Reality is much more cooperative than most people realize. On Earth, President Moon Jae-kyung was speaking to the world. She stood in front of the United Nations building, but her words were being heard on every planet in the galaxy. Citizens of Earth, she said. Today our long isolation ended. The alien species who have watched us for 1,000 years came to our home, not as friends but as conquerors. They brought weapons designed to destroy planets and fleets large enough to darken the sky. She paused, smiling slightly. They have learned that humanity is not what they expected us to be. Around the galaxy, billions of aliens watched the broadcast in confusion and fear. This small human woman was somehow speaking directly to every communication device in known space. Her words were being translated into thousands of languages simultaneously, and her image was appearing even on devices that were turned off. The 1,000-year truce was never about keeping humanity contained. President Moon continued. It was about giving us time to grow into something the galaxy could safely interact with. We needed that time to learn not just how to be powerful, but how to be wise. She gestured, and the image behind her changed. Instead of the Earth's surface, viewers could see the solar system as it really was. Thousands of ships that existed in multiple dimensions, structures that folded space and time, technologies that turned matter into energy and back again just for fun. This is what humanity became during our isolation. We learned to rewrite the laws of physics. We learned to control time and space. We learned to make reality itself more flexible. The image changed again, showing human soldiers walking through space without protection, human engineers creating new stars with their bare hands, and human children playing games that involved creating small universes as toys. But most importantly, President Moon said, we learned restraint. We learned that power without wisdom is dangerous. We learned that the greatest strength is knowing when not to use your capabilities. On the bridge that was now a garden, Zektar listened to the broadcast while eating fruit that should not exist. You could have destroyed us, he said to Velthari. Easily, why didn't you? Because destruction is easy, Velthari replied. Creation is harder. Understanding is harder still. We've learned to prefer the harder paths. What happens now? That depends on you. And your species. And all the other species in the galaxy. Velthari gestured, and suddenly they were looking at a vast conference room that existed in folded space. Representatives from thousands of alien species were materializing around an enormous table made of crystallized starlight. We're calling it the Galactic Congress, Velthari explained. Every species gets a voice. Every world gets a representative. Every point of view gets heard, even ours, after we attacked you. Especially yours. Your species has a warrior tradition. That's valuable. We need people who understand conflict to help us prevent it. On Earth, Dr. Yu Jihe was showing reporters the technology that had been hidden for centuries, but she was only showing them the simple stuff. The reality engines and dimensional folders and time manipulators would have to wait until the galaxy was ready. The most important thing to understand, she explained, is that we didn't develop this technology to fight wars. We developed it to solve problems. How do you feed a growing population? You learn to create matter from energy. How do you give everyone enough space? You fold dimensions so that spaces can be bigger inside than outside. How do you prevent conflicts? You make sure everyone has everything they need. Dr. Park Min-jae, her assistant, demonstrated by creating a small apple out of pure energy. It tastes exactly like a real apple, he said, offering it to a confused alien reporter. Because it is a real apple. We just made it from sunlight instead of growing it on a tree. The alien reporter bit into the apple cautiously. It was perfect. Sweet and crisp and exactly what an apple should be. How? The reporter asked. We asked the energy very politely if it would like to be an apple, Dr. Park said. It was happy to help. Back in space, Admiral Song was meeting with alien commanders who still couldn't quite believe what they had experienced. The meeting was taking place on a platform made of solid light that existed in the space between dimensions. We have a proposal, Song said. A new treaty to replace the old one. What kind of treaty? Asked Admiral Kickster of the Hegemony Fleet. A partnership. Humanity will share our knowledge, but slowly and carefully. We'll help solve problems that seem impossible. We'll teach what we've learned about working with reality instead of against it. In exchange for what? Nothing, Song said. We don't need anything from you that we can't create ourselves. But we want something from you. What? Your perspective. Your knowledge. Your experiences. For 1,000 years, we've been alone. We've learned amazing things, but we've learned them in isolation. You've been out here, living and growing and struggling and succeeding. You have stories we've never heard, ideas we've never considered, ways of thinking that we've never tried. Song gestured and images appeared around them. Pictures of alien worlds, alien cultures, alien art and music and literature. We've become very good at changing reality, she continued. But you've become very good at living in it. We need to learn from each other. Colonel Han Yu-jin was training the first group of alien volunteers who wanted to learn human enhancement techniques, but she was starting them very slowly and very carefully. The first step, she explained to a group of young aliens from different species, is not to change your bodies. It's to change your thinking. You have to stop believing that the laws of physics are absolute. They're more like guidelines. One of the aliens, a tall being with blue skin and tentacles for arms, raised a tentacle. But if we don't follow the laws of physics, won't everything break? Only if you're rude about it, Han said. Physics is like a friend. If you ask nicely and treat it with respect, it's happy to bend the rules for you. If you try to break the rules by force, it gets upset and fights back. She demonstrated by picking up a rock and asking it politely to float. The rock considered this request and decided it sounded fun. It lifted gently into the air and began spinning slowly, humming a little tune. "The rock is happy," one of the alien students observed. "Everything is happier when it's not being forced to do things it doesn't want to do," Han agreed. Even fundamental forces. On Earth, children who had grown up knowing about humanity's real capabilities were talking to alien children through dimensional communication links. The conversations were eye-opening for everyone involved. "Wait," said a young Zephyrian child. "You can really make matter do whatever you want." "Well, we ask it nicely first," replied Kim Tae-wook, who was now 12 years old and could create small pocket universes as easily as building sandcastles. "Matter has feelings too, you know. Matter has feelings. Everything has feelings. Stars are usually very proud. Planets like to feel important. Comets are playful. Black holes are just lonely and want friends.